Hey, thanks for watching this video and welcome to our conversation with the one, the only Cade Flake, formerly a very prominent actor at Evermore Park, and now up to things that we'll talk about later. He also did other things at Evermore Park that I'm sure we'll get into. Cade, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So the first thing I always ask is, oh, actually, it's been about a year since I've done one of these. So, just brief aside to anyone watching, these conversations are with people who are involved in Evermore Park history or were prominently featured at Evermore Park, somehow involved. And it's just to get more viewpoints or perspectives on what it was like there to better document the historical event that was the unique experience of Evermore Park. I did four of these about a year ago, and for the first one coming back in 2026, I thought Cade would be a wonderful person to bring us back in. So, yeah, that's what this conversation will be about. And the question that I asked that I started getting into is, how did you first hear about Evermore Park? How did it first come to your awareness?
Yeah. So I actually became really good friends with somebody that worked at it for like the first season. Um, and he like brought me to it. We did a night in I think 2021. I want to say it was Lore, the Halloween season of 2021. Um, and yeah, so I just like went as a guest for the first time and really, really loved it. Really loved all of the actors that I saw there and was like, I want to do that.
Nice. The person who brought you, is that somebody we would be like aware of? Like the character that they
Um,
played at least, or
Possibly. He played one of the fairies the very first season. I don't think he's been on your channel at all. He only did the one season, so I'm not sure.
yeah, I'm brand new to the Evermore game in terms of the first one. Okay, that's sick. So how did it go from an interest in like attending, thinking it was a cool idea, to actually being involved?
So I think I've like always been a performer to some extent or another. I in high school I did a lot of like the school musicals and whatever. We didn't have a lot going on. I've come from a pretty small town in Arizona, but um, I think that well, and I guess part of it too is that like I went to Disneyland a lot growing up and I saw all the performers there, especially in, like the parades and the shows and stuff. And that was something that like I was like, that would be cool if I was able to do that at some point. It wasn't necessarily something that I had thought was a feasible option at the time, but it was like a, oh, that would be so cool. That's a dream job of mine. But it was like a dream, not necessarily something that I had a goal to do. Um, so when Evermore came up, I was like, oh, this is like a little bit more of a feasible option to perform at a theme park. Um, when I auditioned for the first time, I was like kind of 50-50 whether or not I was going to get in, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I knew I was a decent performer, but I didn't know like what I saw was a really high caliber of performer, and that was really exciting for me. Especially like I think you've had Connor on here before.
Yeah.
He's a really good friend of mine now, but at the time he was like the epitome of good actor, good performer. Like he still is. To be clear, he still is that.
Yeah.
But um, he was just like an unattainable level to me. So I was like, okay, there's that performer. I'm nowhere near that. So it was still very much a like still very much a dream, but this one was like a little bit more attainable. So I was like, I might as well try. It would be a really fun thing to do. I need a job anyway, so um, yeah.
Sweet. And then it turned out well, right? They called you back and they're like, "We'd love to have you on the team."
Mhm.
And your first character, that was Dawdle the Moss Fairy, right?
That's
Did you
right.
have any idea that you were going to be playing a character like that when you were auditioning, or did it come as a surprise to you?
Yeah, the way that they did auditions was they would have you like do kind of an improv thing with like four other people, so like five at a time. You would be given like a role of some kind, like all five of you are pirates, and you're all, um, you're trying to sneak around and steal something from the mayor or something like that. Some a role and then a purpose, and then you would just have to like improv for a few minutes. Um, And the one that I did, at least the one that I remember, was you're all fairies and you're taking care of this dragon egg. So I had a pretty good idea. Also, just like I know myself fairly well, so I was like, if it's going to be any of them, it's probably going to be a fairy, kind of like a Peter Pan type fairy type thing. So yeah, I had some idea that that's what it was going to be.
Sick. So once the character was like determined that you were going to be cast as Dottle, what was the split between how much you created the character and how much was told to you by the staff?
Yeah. The only thing they really gave us was a one-page kind of outline of what the character was supposed to be, which included like a couple of characters that they like kind of drew from to create this new character. So one of them was Peter Pan. The other one was I don't remember his name actually, but it's somebody from League of Legends. I think he was
Couldn't tell
whoever.
you
Yeah,
then.
I don't really know anything about League of Legends personally, but it was like I looked him up, and it was something about like he's an adventurer that goes into like dungeons and gets all of these like collects all these artifacts and whatever. So
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
that was like the two major things is that he's kind of prankster a little bit, and then also that he collects artifacts. And
Yeah.
then based off of that, I got to kind of like flesh out what he was going to be like. We did like audit or rehearsals and stuff where we kind of did what we had an idea of what we were going to do, and then the directors and whoever were giving us feedback and having us like work it out a little bit more. So it was a pretty good balance of like we had a lot of freedom to be able to do what we wanted to, but we also had some guidance, which was really
Okay.
nice for me.
Yeah, that's dope. I recall Dottle, that was the first season that I started like going actively and documenting it on this channel. And I remember that was one of the main things that Dottle had his like tray of all the artifacts and stuff kind of like off back in the for oh goodness, it's been so long. What
Yeah,
is
and
that
the fairy.
fairy area even called? Like
Yeah, I think they just called it the fairy gardens. Pretty simple.
cool. I should have been able to remember that then. But yeah, that's interesting that that was something that was even from like the earliest inspiration for the character. They were like, oh yeah, this guy, he's collected some artifacts.
Yeah.
Um, One interesting thing that happened with Dawdle, it was like one random day. He came out in all black. He was going through this phase. Can you tell me how that came to be, that one day being different?
um, I don't remember all of the details, but basically it was just what would be funny? If Donald became really emo one day.
Just
And
one
that's pretty much
day.
all there was to it, to be honest. I was just like, because like we were doing bits the entire time, and then if I remember correctly, like something happened in the storyline that made him a little bit more like upset. But then also like the reason that we did it was that I remember what it was.
Okay.
The Mystics were trying to get back at him for a prank that he pulled earlier. And so they gave him a potion that made him this like emo version of him. But um yeah, more than anything, it was just kind of me and a couple of other people being like, what would be funny if this really happy and like positive character turned really emo for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just this like bright ball of joy in the garden suddenly. Yeah, that was it was really funny as a guest. Because at that point I came every single day still, and I was just like looking around like what's going on, and like it was a completely different character essentially. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't, but okay. Yeah, that was pretty funny to have a different costume. Um, but speaking of costumes, the next character that you played was Harold Bagley, the ghost adventurer. Um, and I was kind of curious about his costume, and I guess just all of the male ghosts in general that season. If you knew where those were sourced from or where the costumes came from at all.
I don't know all of the pieces. I know I provided the pants because they didn't have pants that fit me, so I went to the thrift store and found some white pants. So
Gotcha.
a few of the costumes were kind of like that at Evermore, where like they had the majority of it, but if they didn't have a particular piece, you could go try to find it. Obviously, they would try to find it too, but that was easy enough to
Yeah,
find. White pants aren't hard to find, so
in Utah. That's
especially in Utah.
That's
Yeah,
what made me think about it. Is I was like, I've seen those pants in thrift stores in Utah
yeah,
specifically. Like I
yeah,
wonder
yeah.
if
And the weird part about that in particular was that somebody got kind of upset that I was using those pants as the ghost one time.
They brought it up like a guest at the park brought it up.
Yes. Yeah, which I thought was kind of silly because they're just pants. Like, and especially
At
like
the
I
end of
bought
the
them,
day, it's pants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I thought that was kind of silly, but
Yeah. Um, but the reason why for the 99% of the people who were watching this who were like question mark, the white pants are of religious significance to certain groups in Utah.
yeah,
But yeah, they're also pants of a color
yes,
that exists in the world.
yeah,
Anyone can
yeah.
wear.
And just like a quick note about that, because I grew up in that church. They really are just pants. Like, there's other stuff that is kind of sacred. Those ones, like, they're simply pants. At the end of
Yeah,
the day,
yeah.
they are just pants.
Definitely. But the way those pants moved, I don't know if these transitions are working. But one of the things that was really cool about Harold Bagley was he was a ghost. He was unaware of the fact that he was a ghost. But your physical presence, your body language, was absolutely not unaware of your ghostliness. Harold Bagley, the way he would walk would just kind of float through the park. Like not no natural like walking like cadence or gait or anything, just like very not bouncing. Where did that come from? Is that just something you thought of, or did you get direction on that?
No, that I did think of that. I'm sure that I like saw other ghosts earlier doing the same thing. I'm sure it wasn't like completely from my own brain, but yeah, a lot of it was just, oh, he's a ghost. He should not be bouncing the way that people do. What's the best way to do that? And it didn't always come across, but I actually didn't know that anybody really noticed that. I think you're the first person that has pointed that out. That
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm glad that it came across to somebody.
yeah, no, it was very prominent to me. The part of it might be that this will come up a little bit later, but me and Crow were like obsessed with figuring out what the heck's going on with this character. And there was one time where you were having a conversation with the other people in the Adventurers Guild, and you just like all of a sudden were like, huh, I just thought of something, and like walked off. And nobody else thought it was significant. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. It was like time for your shift at the haunt or something.
Oh,
But I was like, he just remembered that he died. He's walking straight for the catacombs. So I'm behind you. I hate that I am this way, but I'm recording you from like 10 feet away as you're walking from the hovel over to the catacombs. And so yeah, when you have 3 minutes of uninterrupted footage of somebody just walking, not doing anything else, the details become more apparent to you. So
that is
yeah, I
completely fair.
definitely noticed that. But yeah, the Mr. Bagley storyline. Bagley? Harold Bagley? But you kind of said it with like an E sometimes. How would you pronounce it?
I think the way that I said it was Bagley. I think I was wrong, to be honest
Bagley.
with you. When I like in my head, the first thing that I thought of was Bagley. So that's how I said it the rest of the time. But I think that like officially the actual name is said Bagley.
Oh, cool, whatever. We all just
Yeah.
adjusted to you because we're like nobody would know better than him himself. Um, yeah, that storyline in general, um, of a ghost that doesn't know that he has died and kind of is under the impression that he's still alive. Where did that come from? Like how much was that split that you came up with it and it was given to you?
So the general idea of a ghost that has died but doesn't know was something that was given to me. That was kind of apparent from the audition process of that season, because that season did roughly the same thing that the one earlier that I talked about did, where they gave you like a whole group of people has a role and then a purpose. And one of the ones that they did for me was that, and I ended up being the ghost of that one. And so from the beginning, it was clear that they had this idea of a ghost that doesn't know who he is, or doesn't know that he's dead. Um, Really, it was just supposed to be a bit. Like they specifically were like the adventurers are going to be kind of Scooby Doo and just be kind of silly. And I think it came across that way fairly well. We were pretty silly most of the time, but a couple of the regulars, you and Crow included, really got into that idea. And so originally, it wasn't supposed to be really anything deeper than that, but we wanted to give you guys something like basically follow what you guys were interested in. So that's why we kind of went a little bit deeper with that and actually fleshed out a storyline. It wasn't really supposed to be that deep. And then you guys wanted it to be. And so, yeah, we wanted to give you guys what you wanted.
Yeah, that's so cool. Oh, first off, I apologize. I can kind of feel that my internet connection isn't 100% right now. So I might be saying things with like a 2 second delay or something. So appreciate your patience on that front. But with that in particular, giving the guests what they want, that was one of I'm probably going to split the things that I enjoyed about you as a performer at Evermore Park into like three different areas so that it's not like uncomfortable as I sit here and like glaze you like a Krispy Kreme for a while. Okay. My internet just said your connection is unstable. Have I still been like audible through this or?
Yeah, no, you've been audible. Yeah, it's like the video will cut out every once in a while, but you're
Gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I just like completely disappeared. Sweet. But anyway, one of the first things that you did really well is on this front, where you were aware of how meaningful connections with certain characters were to the guests. And one way that you went really above and beyond with Harold Bagley in particular is that in the following season, after Mr. Bagley went out on his boat to like find his new afterlife, um, you wrote a letter to be delivered by a mailman character in the following season to Crow, um, which is obviously something that I I've never heard of being done before. It must have been something that like you thought of on your own, did on your own time. Is that accurate, or where did this letter come from?
yeah. Well, to be fair, Crow was like, "Will you write?" Whenever like the very last part of Mr. Bagley's story was happening, like in real time, she was like, "Are
Yeah.
you gonna write?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so I just kind of like held on to that and actually did it. So it was
Yeah.
sort of my idea, but really it was just me actually responding to what she said.
But that's still so cool that like you took the time to actually respond and like and follow up in character. And I know that I was recording when that letter was delivered and when Crow opened it, and it was really meaningful to her that whole moment. Um, so
Appreciate that.
thanks.
Yeah.
Um, any other interesting stories that you wanted to tell about the characters we've talked about so far, or anything that's come to mind that I've kind of talked over you on?
Um, yeah, I think an interesting thing that I really enjoyed about Mr. Bagley was especially because like he didn't start out with all of this depth. And I had to kind of like develop that as we went. First of all, we have a team of writers every season. There was usually three, I think. Um, and usually like each of the writers had an area or like a guild that they were over, that they were the main writers for. Um, and obviously they had more than one, and so they had a lot on their plate. So especially with Mr. Bagley, I obviously took charge of my own character a little bit, but I did like go through the proper channels to like make sure that the writer was okay with everything that I was doing, and I like worked with him to be able to do that. And one of the main things that I was particularly proud of was I wrote like an entire journal from Mr. Bagley's perspective. I don't know if you ever saw that, but so like it fleshed out his entire backstory up to like four generations or something like that. Um, and why this like quest that he was on was so important to him, and why he stuck around afterwards. Why he was so adamant that he did not die. So to me, I think that that journal helped me to really get into Mr. Bagley's character, but also that was a really cool exercise for me in just like character development in general and getting really deep into a character's mindset so that you can understand what they're doing so that you can play them a little bit better and make them feel like a real person.
Yeah. And when you were writing that journal, is that one of the things that you kind of interacted with the writers to make sure that it like fell in line with the larger Evermore storyline and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. And most of it was disconnected from Evermore. It was just like a little tiny bit here and there that was connected to Evermore, obviously, by the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was absolutely, I was like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about writing about. Is this okay? Does this make sense? Is there anything that you want to change or add? And I don't remember for sure, but I assume that there was a couple of things that he was like, well, that doesn't quite work, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think that's what's interesting too, is that like when you're writing a novel, you're creating everything from scratch and it's really just you with some like input from other people. But with a theme park or anything that's like Evermore, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen and all of the cooks have a say in what you have to do. And, you know, there's a head cook. I was more of the sous chef in this case. So it's a really cool version of like collaborative storytelling.
Yeah. The head cook in this case, would that have been Trevor? Because I know he was also acting in that same guild at the time.
Yeah, he was a major one for sure for the guild in general. But actually, Jerem was the main one, at least for Mr. Bagley. He was the main one that I was interacting with, and a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
that had to do with because he was one of the monster hunters. The what
Gotcha.
were they called? What are the names? I
The
forgot.
Blackheart Hunters?
Blackhearts. Yes, he was one of the Blackhearts that season, and because of the interaction that we had between those two guilds a lot,
Yeah.
especially in terms of Mr. Bagley, he was also one of the main ones that I was talking to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's sick. So for the following season, you were, and this was something that was different about the post-reset Evermore than the one that your friend would have been in the first season. At the beginning, they were trying to have it be kind of a consistent through line, like the same characters, even in a lot of cases from season to season. And in Evermore's the second half of its life, they would have a completely new swath of characters come in every time that a new season started. So for the winter themed season, you were Duke Edvin of Crittich Fitch, which was a group of individuals that like harvested peppermint. Like peppermint were trees. So you would like as foresters or lumberjacks or whatever go down and like collect peppermint. Um, what did you like about that character?
Um, that was an interesting one because so with Mr. Bagley, he started out not that serious and then became a little more serious and a little more like involved as time went. And then I was like, well, that was a lot. I need a break. So with Edvin, um, I made him not have I don't want to say less depth because he was definitely like a real character and had a lot of depth, but he had less like secrets going on. He was pretty like upfront with everything that he had going on. He was the duke of his duchy, but he didn't have like other characters in that guild had secrets going on. He was not one of them. He was just there to do what he said he was going to do, which is create relations with Evermore and like business deals and that kind of thing. Um, so I really enjoyed that kind of simplicity of it because it was very much a real character, and he was a little bit more like I actually am in real life than Mr. Bagley was. Mr. Bagley was a fairly far throw from my actual personality. Um, Edvin was a little more like me, so I didn't have to like act as much. Um, but yeah, I'd say that the simplicity allowed me to focus a little more on not just like interactions with guests and especially those guests that cared about this character, but also just like guests in general. Like with Mr. Bagley, it was very much about it was obviously about the guests in general, but a lot of them had a hard time understanding that he was dead, but didn't know he was dead. So I had to figure out ways to just like mitigate that and help them understand. And frankly, if they didn't understand and they were just like kept insisting, I would just leave. And I know that's something that you caught in your videos sometimes. With Edvin, because it was
Yeah.
so simple, like I didn't have to do any of that. I just said what I was going to say, and I got to be a lot more of like a duke would be a public figure, so he got to just like talk to big groups of people, all at once about very simple and straightforward things like joining the guild, business deals. These are exactly what's going on. So that helped me to bring out a little bit more of a side of my personality um, that I don't do very often, which is a little bit more of leadership. Um, because I feel like I'm a pretty good leader, a pretty good like responsible person. But in terms of like playing a character that's like that, that's not something that a lot of characters have. So that was something that I really liked.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also, talking to the same point, I guess this will end up being like the second of maybe three compliments to your performing. Just that concept of being aware of the guests and putting their needs first. There's a couple of ways that you've done that, but since we're talking about Duke Edvin right now, this was a season. I'll bring up one of my own personal experiences. I'm sure that people have hundreds with you, but this was a season where I had been coming every day for like months now. I had been there for Mythos, I had been there for lore, and it was getting to the extent that like a lot of the actors were familiar with me or comfortable with me. And I started to notice, and it kind of bummed me out that like maybe like half of them would like drop character when they were around me because they were like, "Oh yeah, like hey, hey, what's up?" kind of thing. Um, Never once in the years that I interacted with you did you ever do that. Like you always respected that I was there trying to like find the magic that had inspired me to buy the season pass in the first place and like really I don't want to say like did your job, but you stayed in your role in a way that I really genuinely appreciated. I was like, oh, like he's treating me with respect as somebody who's like trying to engage with this world and stuff. So, um, yeah, that was a cool thing.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad that that happened. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Um, so that's the end of the first year that you were working at Evermore. And then they have this long gap in between. But my understanding is that in this second year, you got like an internship at Evermore. When did that take place within the year? Would you have been like more involved during this gap even, or was it later on that that kind of occurred?
It was mostly later on. It was mostly during the summer.
Okay.
Because for my major, we had to do an internship, and that's where I chose to do it. And so it was mostly over the summer that it happened. But I definitely helped a little bit with stuff beforehand. In fact, if I remember right, I think I was like kind of already working doing that stuff, and then I was like, let's just get internship credit for this same
Let's
stuff that
make
I'm
this
already
the
doing.
internship.
Yeah,
Yeah. What
exactly.
was that process like? What did you have to do?
Um, well, I was talking a little bit about Connor. He was one of the main people. The internship was the show design team, and Connor was one of the main people on that, along with Jarvis. He was the head of the show design department. Um, so if I remember right, it kind of just began because I was like, here's some things that I'm doing. And like that journal that I was talking about was kind of a prop design thing. Um, and Jarvis was like, oh, that's really neat. I could use your help with this stuff. So I like helped out with some stuff, just kind of my own volition, and Jarvis asking me to do some stuff. And then as time went on, I became a little bit more of an official part of it. Um, and eventually like got a kind of separate clock in from the like acting clock in versus the show design clock in, just to make sure that they like differentiated where in the budget it's coming from, you know. um, and in terms of the internship, I had a lot of like kind of class stuff to do with that because it kind of came with a class as well. But a lot of it was, yeah, just the same stuff that I was doing. A lot of the like show design elements, which means both like following the directions of Jarvis, but also Jarvis would sometimes just be like, hey, like one of the main things that I was in charge of for that second lore season, the Halloween season, was Drakenhaven. I rearranged stuff in there. I was like mostly in charge of the Mystic section. So I got to kind of use my own creative liberties to decide what I wanted to do. And obviously, I ran it through Jarvis, and he helped with a lot of it, but he gave me a lot of freedom with especially that one.
That's awesome. Was there any other stuff that you worked on the show design side that you're like really proud of or that you remember fondly?
Um, I think that Drakenhaven, the Mystic section, was definitely a big one for me because it was like a pretty big area, and like I didn't change everything that was in there, but I did a pretty significant amount. Um, and also with Drakenhaven, this is somewhat unrelated to the Mystics, but we at one point painted the ceiling to look like stars. Um, and
Yeah.
a few because the actually I think that um Aurora season that we were just talking about, there was a character that was really into stars and like constellations and the stories of those constellations, except they weren't the real life ones on Earth, they were the Auroran constellations, right? So I
Hmm.
took the stories that they were already talking about, and then I like kind of designed the um, constellations, and I got to like kind of delve deeper into like real life constellations and how they came to be, so that I could figure out like, okay, these shapes they're not going to be like at the end of Hercules, the movie Hercules, where they're like, we're going to put Hercules up in the sky, and it's literally just like a bunch of stars that creates the whole outline of Hercules, and like it's a perfect little drawn thing. Obviously, real constellations are not like that. They're just a bunch of stars that you connect lines between, and then that kind of looks like it could be a swan or whatever. So I got to like delve deeper into what that actually looks like in real life. And I think that's something that I carried with me through everything, especially at Evermore, but even beyond with my own storytelling, is that like to me, the cooler stuff, the cooler like world building stuff is more realistic stuff like that. And not making it just fantastical, but making it realistic helps people to be more grounded in the world and to make it feel like you're actually there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that whenever what we're experiencing in a story aligns with our real life experiences, like the way that we perceive things in normal life, it makes it easier to penetrate through like the suspension of disbelief difficulty is decreased. So I agree. That is an important part of storytelling. Um, I guess related to storytelling, I'm trying too hard. It's the convergence was something that happened, I think, before the normal break even occurred. Like,
Makes sense.
I think it came before Mythos. So it was kind of in this gap that we're talking about. Um, where did the story for that season, not season, like I guess just a special event, come from? Was it like a collaboration with Quincy, or was it one or the other side just saying like this is the characters that are going to be there?
Um, I don't know the answer to that totally because I wasn't super
Yeah.
involved with the planning part of it. But I do think that it was a lot of Quincy being like, hey, we want to host this event, and we want characters to be there. And, here's the lore that I've already built. And then he kind of gave the creative freedom to the Evermore team to be able to like fit characters into that. So like my character for that was essentially Dawdle again.
Yeah, I was
Like
going to
costume was
ask.
almost the exact same as Dawdle. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we like um obviously it wasn't exactly the same. The costume was pretty similar, but the like details of it weren't the exact same. And so it was a lot of I think his already existing lore, but then a lot of creative freedom on the Evermore side.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I didn't attend the convergence because I'm not a wealthy individual, but I did watch the videos that people had from it, and I was like, that's Dawdle. Like, just kind of in the background. For me, it was difficult to differentiate. But yeah, do you have any recollection of like how many guilds, how many characters were out that night? I know it was years ago at this point.
Yeah. I think if I remember right, there was four guilds, and I think each of them had like three characters per
Okay.
guild, more or less. I might
Yeah.
be wrong
So
about
like
those numbers, but it was at least
12-ish, something
yeah,
like
12
that.
to 15. I think there might have been some like
Yeah,
gilded people
yeah.
as
The
well.
unaligned people that walk
Yeah,
around.
exactly. But I don't remember all the details of that. It was only a couple nights if I remember right. Maybe even
Okay,
just
cool.
one. But,
Yeah. Anything else interesting happened during that event that you wanted to talk about?
to be honest, not a whole lot that I was involved with. I
Gotcha.
just was kind of there. I was playing my role. We did some fun little quests, but they were all pretty similar to a normal season at Evermore.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure how to have a more directed question on that one because I wasn't there, so I'm just like I don't know
Yeah.
anything fun. Um,
Yeah. I know there was a lot more going
but
on, but in terms of me, like it was pretty much the same.
cool. Sweet. So after that is when the Mythos season started in earnest. And when you were a fairy in your very first season in Mythos, it was this like light bouncing ball of joy type of fairy. And then as you were Tauren, exactly a year later, it was a very different type of character. Do you want to tell us anything about Tauren?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of fun with Torin because again, like that's not me. That's not my personality really at all. So I had to. It was a real like acting challenge for me. Because yeah, I'm a pretty like friendly, bubbly person. He was very like serious, very cunning, like kind of classic villain. Um, and so I had to pull a lot from like other characters that I'd seen. Like one of the main kind of characters that I pulled from was I don't remember his name, but the villain on Shadow and Bone that Ben Barnes plays. I had like just watched that a couple of months before, and I was like, okay, that's kind of the energy that I want to embody, where he's super charismatic because Torn was a little bit like cult leader, and that's something that we talked about a lot in the like rehearsal process was that like this guild, pseudo guild, was going to be a cult, and we want people to join it without realizing necessarily that it's the villains. And like obviously, it's pretty clear we're wearing all black and gold. We've got all these like dark imagery and whatever, so it was fairly clear. But we wanted to embody as much of that, like even though it's very clearly the villains, we want people to want to join us anyway. So that was one of the things that I pulled from there is that his character in that is very like he's got all that same like shadowy energy or imagery, um, but he's so like charismatic and convincing that people want to join him anyway. Even the main character wants to join him at some point.
Yeah, that's really cool. I I think that it wasn't as directly obvious as maybe we would have assumed that it was the evil people. Um, I remember a lot of occasions. Okay, so um, details for people who weren't at this season. Torin was a dark, unseelie fae. Um, I'm sure a lot of that came through. But like essentially the villain of the summer season. And I at the end, if you do join the guild, the Unseelie Fairies, um, he would demand that you kneel while taking a pledge that like you will hand over all control to. So there were a lot of people that I saw at that moment immediately for the first time become aware that this is a cult and that this is the bad guys. And they like usually followed through on it. But this season had one of the most widely shared videos from like an influencer who just kind of came and visited the park who joined your guild and when, at the end of the night was like, whoa, I guess we joined the bad guys. Like even that initiation wasn't enough to like make it click like, oh, like these are the bad guys until you came in at the end of the night and like um choked out the mayor or whatever.
Yeah.
Um
Which, by the
cool.
way, Mayor's assistant right here
I
did the same thing.
yeah. I I think in his video I was actually the one working that night.
You
And
better.
I did the it wasn't even supposed to be a choke, I don't think, when Jacob was doing it. It was more of like a you've frozen him in time kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, I had recently gone to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland, and there's the part where like they'll get force grabbed and like choked almost. And I was like, I'm just gonna do that. That seems more clear what's happening to somebody than like just like stopping moving because like sometimes people stop moving and it's not a magical influence. Um, but yeah, that was kind of fun. I think
Yeah.
one time right before we went into the night, I said like "choke me, daddy" or something, and that was weird. But that
I
was
don't
that
remember
was
that.
our rule. Good. So anyway, with Torin, um, maybe that's a third thing that comes to mind that you did really well is I think that it's easy for Evermore performers and especially villain types or darker characters to kind of end up in their own world and forget that these are still like random guests that are attending a theme park. It's easy for them to fall into corners and not reach out to guests as much. Um, but I guess maybe like the charismatic nature of Torian made it easier for you to like really welcome people. I already mentioned this in our work Discord at the time, so I guess this is more directed towards the viewer. But Cade would actually go out of like the ruins that was the center for Torin if there weren't a line of people already ready to talk to him to like draw people in to like give them an experience and reach out to them. I think that that was amazing and rare that you had the opportunity to kind of like just like rest back and like let people come to you or like breathe for a second, but instead you were still reaching out to the guests, trying to give people a good experience that they had like come and intended for. Um, so that was really a cool thing.
Well, thank you. I especially
Is
with
there?
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
sorry. I didn't mean to
I'm
interrupt.
2 seconds behind. So when I interrupt you, it's completely unintentional. So please
Oh no,
continue.
that was my bad. I think especially with that, I enjoy doing my job. Like just in any job that I'm doing, I usually enjoy it. But also especially like performing, like I like interacting with people. I'm a pretty extroverted person. So like it wasn't just that I was just doing my job because that's what I'm getting paid for. I wanted to make it fun for me. And sitting back and just like watching people pass is not fun. So for me, it was kind of selfish on
Yeah,
my part to just be like, it's much more fun to do this than to just like let everything happen around me. I just wanted to
yeah,
feel included,
gotcha.
you know?
Well, it was one of those cases of selfishness that ended up working out for everybody. So
I guess so.
not a bad case at all. Um, okay, awesome. So after that season, with Mythos, I think before the Halloween season of lore started in earnest, wasn't that when the ghost tour, like the supernatural sleepover thing happened?
Yeah, or it might have been in the middle of lore. I don't remember for sure, but like right around then, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I don't remember either. And this will be another one of those weird ones where I did not attend because it was like over $100 to get a ticket to it, and I just didn't spring for it. Um, but I did watch the videos after. Mage Damon, or like he has his YouTube channel that's like BU space RN. It's like stylized. I'm not sure if it's pronounced burn or not. But he did attend and he recorded the Ghost Tour, so I was able to see it that way. And do you recall? It seemed like you were coming up to the group and you were like, "Hey, it's your guys' turn next." Was it that there was like different shifts that like a smaller group would go through and do the tour at a time, and then there'd be another chance later, or?
So it was more like everybody did the tours all at once, and they had I think two like tour guides per group. So they ended up with I want to say like 10 ish groups all going at the same time, but we just like went all around the park in a big circle, if that makes sense.
Okay, so there would have been like 10 different people that were telling the stories instead of doing like two people and doing shifts.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like we went with that group the entire way through the park. So it was me and my friend Yuane was my partner.
Okay.
So we like followed them from the catacombs all the way to the ruins to the fairy gardens and all the way back to the catacombs or whatever.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I only being able to see it from his perspective of when he was recording, I don't know why I got the impression, and I feel like this would have been more financially viable for them, so I think that that's maybe why I assumed is that they would have had just like two people and then like it's like everyone has a time slot or whatever. So that is interesting that it's different than like my assumption or whatever. So thanks for sharing that part.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
for the stories that you told at each of the locations, do you remember like where that came from? Was that like were you given a script? How much time in advance did you have to prepare for it? Or was that like a lot of improv or
So this one was an interesting one um, because we were given a script. However, we were not given very much time in advance to like memorize it or learn it.
yeah.
Um, it also wasn't necessarily like an exact script. It was more like kind of a bullet point type thing,
Hmm.
where we had a little bit of freedom, but it was mostly like the story was pretty fleshed out. And then it was up to us to kind of make it an interesting story. Not that like obviously the story points were interesting. It was more just like our production of the story needed to be interesting. And I know we only did 2 nights
Yeah,
of
the
it.
way that you present it and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And we only did 2 nights of it, which was a little bit of a problem, especially on my end, me personally, because my first night just like did not go very well in terms of my storytelling. Like my oral storytelling was really poor. It was really boring, to put it like frankly. But by the second night, I had improved quite a bit because like I figured out I had tested things out the first night and figured out what went well and what didn't go well. And a lot of that was kind of the character that I put on. We didn't necessarily have characters the same way that we would in a normal season, but we still had something of a character.
Mhm.
So, as I'm sure you have realized by now, the way that I like design characters is by pulling on characters I've already seen in different from different like media. So the first night I was trying to kind of embody the butler guy on the old Haunted Mansion movie with Eddie Murphy. So like that was the person that I was trying to be, and then that was not going well. He's not really a storyteller. I was trying to be like all creepy and spooky, and that just wasn't what I should have been doing. So instead, I pulled a little bit more actually on Connor's character, the Tosher, and I was trying to like basically more or less be a much shorter version of him. And I think that that went a lot better uh, because there was a lot more like improv involved with it than you would think being given a script, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, gotcha. Do you remember which one would have been recorded? Have you seen the recording that Mage Damon put up on his channel?
Yeah, of the one of me, it was the first night, which
Okay.
is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
because it seemed more like a butler, but I disagree. I thought you did like a good job presenting it and stuff. I
Well, thank you. I had a lot of things that I wanted to improve on after that first night. That's for sure.
yeah. So just so people know, it's like it would have been even better on the second night. But and you might have heard about this, you might not have. One of the stories that got a little bit more attention was the one that you told outside of the catacombs, which was with like a witch that has a bunch of skulls, and she'll take your skull if you don't bring her a different skull. Um, do you remember like that was on the script that was given to you? Did you have any awareness of like where the story came from? Some people thought that like maybe it was like a folk tale. Um, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it was a folktale. I don't know for sure. I know a lot of the stories were like different folktales, like real folktales from around the world. That one, for example, the night that was recorded, the like original script called it the Baba Yaga and stuff like that. Which at least the Baba Yaga is a real folktale
Yeah.
from like Eastern Europe, Russia area.
Yeah.
Uh, by the second night, I'm not sure how much of the like skulls and whatever, like the details of the story came from a folktale and how much of it was the writer's imagination, like that the writer made it up. Um, but I do know that by the second night, one of the things that I adjusted was that Evermore is supposed to be in England. And I thought it was a little bit weird that we were telling a story about the Baba Yaga
Mhm.
in a place that's supposed to be England. So
Yeah.
I just adjusted it a little bit and I called it the Beldam instead, um, which is a little bit more like English, French, Western Europe. And
Yeah.
so, at least in terms of that, like because of the improv that we got to do, some of it was definitely folk tales, but then we adjusted it to ourselves. So another really good example of this actually is Yuane. One of the stories that we told over by the lake was more or less the story of La Llorona. Um, Ioane adjusted it a little bit because he's got a similar story from Hawaiian culture. He's Hawaiian. And so he like
Yeah.
basically just didn't like completely get rid of everything that the writer initially said, but he like adjusted it so that it was a little bit more of his story. And I thought that was really cool. And that's a little bit why I adjusted the Baba Yaga one to be a Beldam one instead, is that it made it a little bit more real. A lot of these, so the way that they kind of marketed this event, it made it seem like it was going to be a lot more about like real ghost stories from Evermore, which there are. So I try to like pepper in a few of those as well, just real ghost stories that I'd heard throughout Evermore. Um, but the way that the writer took it was, and I'm sure there was some direction from a little bit higher up about this too, was a little bit more just like telling spooky stories that weren't necessarily Evermore spooky stories, if that makes sense. So by adjusting it to something that's a little bit more personal to us, like for Ioane's example, something from his culture, it made it a little bit more personal. And I could tell in the like guests' eyes, I could tell that they were a little bit more like interested and like there was a lot more of like being on their edge of their seat when we did make it a little bit more personal and tell a story that like we knew personally.
Mhm. Gotcha. Sorry. The the name Beldam, you kind of refer to it like it's something that like is well known, but I don't know a lot of stuff. Is that from like some people thought it was from Coraline? To me, it's a Pokemon. Is which was it for you?
Yeah, so obviously, like Coraline is the first place that my mind went, but the name Beldam literally just means like beautiful woman in French, I think, or
Okay.
like Frenchish. Um, and it is kind of like a there aren't like really specific stories the way that there are for the Baba Yaga, but it is kind of this idea of like a witch archetype.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and then this the story itself about the skull switching, some people thought it was Vasilisa the Fair. I don't know. It seems like the person who created the script would know better than you, but
Yeah, I don't know that one.
I'm not familiar with that story either. Okay, cool. Sweet. Was there anything else interesting about the ghost tour? I'm doing the same junk as the conversions.
No, this is great. um, I think it was a really interesting concept. One thing that I wish that they had done was like do more of it and like do more than 2 nights because that first night was really a dress rehearsal and it didn't,
Mhm.
at least for me, it didn't go great. By the second night, I was already like 10 times better in my opinion. And so I wish that they had continued with that. And that's something that I wish that they did with Evermore in general, with those special events, is that it wasn't like a 2 night thing and
Yeah.
they would like continue with these ideas because that way it actually ended up being good by the end of it. Because that first night, it never really goes well. As a performer, your opening night is never great, especially because it's your first time really with an audience. And so you can tell what hits and what doesn't. And that's something that I really like about live performance in general is that it's you get a live reaction to your performance, and that means that the next time that you do it can be even better because you know what hits and what doesn't.
I've noticed that in the normal seasons as well, is they always said like it was kind of just known between the frequent world walkers that the first weekend in general is like somewhat of a burner weekend. So that makes a lot of sense that for those longer seasons, that momentum has time to build and for you to see the benefit on the other side of it. Yeah, two-night event is weird in that it does not give as much opportunity for like percentage wise people to have the good one.
Yeah.
Um, that makes sense. Um, okay, I don't think I have any more questions about the how or sorry, about the supernatural sleepover in particular. Um, other than I guess I was shocked that more didn't go wrong. Like I said that I didn't go because it was so expensive, but also like I I got my butt touched enough at Evermore when I was awake. Like the thought of being unconscious in a tent somewhere like really freaked me out, but I didn't hear anything terrible. I shockingly didn't hear anything terrible coming out of that event where people were there all night. Um was that also your, as somebody who was more closely involved, like did it seem to go okay?
Yeah, from what I could tell, I think aside from a little bit of disappointment on the guest side in terms of like they wanted it to be more real, more like more of the ghost hunting stuff because they had some like ghost hunting equipment, and they did get to use that and whatever. But they were hoping that like more would happen with that, which like obviously is up to the spirits, I guess, and how much they're going to actually interact. But also, like, it was a little bit less focused on that, and the main draw really was the stories that we were telling. But yeah, in terms of like the kind of sleepover part of it, I we were all expecting a little bit of um, I don't know, some things to go wrong, and luckily they did not. So yeah, it was a little bit of a happy surprise to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out at the end, I guess. And then after that, or whatever, timing
Yeah,
wise, the next thing we're going to talk about is the lore season, where you played Sir Dominic of the Bentry clan. Um, that character, I know that you pointed out on your socials that he had some secrets again, kind of swinging the pendulum back towards the Mr. Bagley side of like hiding a little bit of his storyline underneath. Um, what secrets did he have that he would have shared if somebody were able to build a relationship with him?
so I think the main one that I was referring to was he was secretly the brother of a character from the season before and that season as well. Kendrick, Sir Kendrick, one of the knights that was in the Mythos season and then carried over into the lore season. Um, and that one was interesting because the main reason that that came about is because um, me and the actor that played Kendrick got mixed up a lot, even when we had like very different costumes on. Like he was a knight, I was the villain, and we even then got mixed up pretty thoroughly.
By just
So
guests coming
when
through because
yeah,
sorry to
yeah,
cut
just
you
like
off,
yeah, random
like
guests.
okay. And it was just because you looked similar like physically, like hairstyle or something?
Yeah, hairstyle, just yeah, like our facial features and whatever. We look related, right? And so when they put me in the Knights, when they were like, okay, Kendrick is staying, and you're going to be Kendrick again, and then Cade, you're going to be one of the Knights. I was like, okay, this could definitely cause a problem because even completely different characters put they like mixed us up. So if we're both Knights, we're going to get mixed up all the time. So my idea to solve that a little bit to mitigate that as much as possible is to make it a thing, which was that we were siblings, right? Because if we talk about how we're siblings, people will be a little bit more aware of that, and um, we'll be able to like mitigate that mix up and whatever, so that people can understand the difference between the two characters. Because as long as they're aware, it should be okay. And obviously, that ended up through the course of the um, rehearsal process. That ended up being something that my character was actually supposed to keep a secret a little bit more, which was not necessarily my choice. That wasn't something that I would have chosen to do because of the reason that it came about, like I was talking about. Um, but it did make for some interesting character development and some character interactions with the regulars.
That's cool. Um, I guess like half of me wants to ask, was there anything else that was interesting to you about that character that people might not have known initially? And the other half wants to like, I could leave this alone and go to the next thing if I'm probing for something that isn't there.
No, no, absolutely. Yeah, that one actually, that was another one where for the Mythos season, because I was one of the two like main villains. Also, an interesting note about the Mythos season for the viewers, I guess, because you already know this, is that the way that they did it was they tried to have two casts basically. And so, but instead of like two people playing the same character, they had two people in the same archetype. So I was the villain, and then in the other cast, there was another villain that was my character's sister, right? Um, anyway, unrelated necessarily, but um, with Mythos, because I was like one of the two main villains, they I like put a lot of work and effort into that. So I wanted a little bit more of a break again with this character. Um, so initially it was I was trying to make it a little bit more like just upfront and not really any secrets necessarily. Like I'm just there to vibe. But as time went on, especially in the rehearsal process, but even throughout the season itself, um, I got more and more secrets, and like he got a lot more like he was already, every character is gonna have depth, but now he's got like secret depth that people have to earn. World walkers would have to earn the trust of this character to be able to unlock those secrets. And so that was really interesting to me to like go through a process of there was already going to be depth, but now I've got to keep those secrets. Because with Mr. Bagley, there just wasn't that depth to begin with, you know? Like he was just supposed to be a bit. The whole ghost thing was just supposed to be a bit. Um, with Dominic, there was supposed to be that depth in the first place, but it was not necessarily supposed to be a secret. And then I had to learn how to keep that secret. And also like adjust the way that I talked about it so that I would give a hint of that secret, but not fully reveal it and that kind of thing. Um, and I think along with that, those kind of secrets and the details of those secrets of like his past, I guess, came about because of some more logistical things. And what I mean by that is the mystics at Evermore always gave, well, not always, but usually gave like real tarot readings and like rune readings and whatever they knew how to do. They would usually like give real versions of that. And when they went up to Drakenhaven, we knew that they were going to get absolutely swamped because that's a really cool area. People are going to want to be in there even without the mystics in there. And then also just like the flow of a building like that is a lot. There's not as much flow as a tent would have, right? A tent where you just go up and then leave. Instead, it's a building that's a little bit harder to get out of. So because of that, we were a little bit worried about if they offer. Oh, and another thing, another reason for this is that it was the first time that they were like really deeply involved in the storyline. Because a lot of the time, the Mystics would have some kind of storyline going on, but it was kind of adjacent to the storyline, and they didn't always have a ton to do with it, with like the exception of one or two characters. This time, it was like the entire guild of the Mystics was A, you could join the Mystics, and B, they were really deeply involved with the storyline, so people were going to be going to them constantly for more than just the like divination side of things. Um, so anyway, all that to say, I tried to help mitigate that a little bit um, by like offering my own readings, just to like give people another option to go to if they didn't want to go all the way up there and just kind of drag away a little bit of that, which didn't always happen. It only happened a few times, right? But I do think that it was interesting to kind of work a logistical, like real life reason into a storyline reason for why this character knows how to do that and why he's interested in that. And I even did that with like a song that I wrote and a couple of other things that were like, why is this scrawny little kid a knight? And he definitely, like, I know me, I should not be a knight, but I had to figure out a way for it to make sense to the world walkers.
Yeah, that's really cool. The song, this was a song that Sir Dominic wrote. Where
Mm-hmm.
was it just like kind of in a journal, similar to how Mr. Bagley had a journal and like you would show it to people or you would sing it?
No, I sang it a couple times for people. I didn't have it like written down in a journal. I had it like in real life. I had it written down on my phone, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a folk song from Mythos, where they came from, the world of Mythos. Um, yeah, but like Cade real life wrote it. And so I like wanted to show it off a little bit because I put a pretty good amount of time and effort into it. So yeah, I only did it to like two or three people, but it was a fun little like side quest that we had for me and you, my friend Yuane, one of the mystics. We had people go back and forth, and like he had a song that he would sing as well. So it was a
Oh,
fun little like musical moment that was apart from the pirates who were already doing their music.
that's interesting. I always thought it was unique in Evermore how there were things like that that you took time on and that you prepared for, but that like as an average guest, like I might never actually see. Did you ever have anything with all of your characters that you played throughout your entire time at Evermore that you did prep like that? Like a secret history or like underlying storyline that you never got to show to anybody at all? That just
Hmm.
kind of like fell by the wayside, some concept that was in your mind?
I don't think I can't think of any that necessarily were like that exactly. But I will say the journal of Mr. Bagley is long. It is a full journal. It's all like, almost to the end of the journal. Obviously, I knew that nobody was gonna like look through it for fully, and that's fine. I don't. It was mostly for me, you know. But there are some like fun little details in that journal that I knew up here, but never got said, never probably never got read. I think Crow and maybe you were the only ones to really like read that journal at any point. And there was some like real specific pages that you guys wanted to go to, obviously, because you're not going to read like 100 pages of my ramblings. um, so yeah, I don't know that there was anything that like I prepped that never at all got seen, but there was a lot of like little details that didn't didn't get seen necessarily, but and I'm okay with that obviously, but
Mhm.
that I like I'm really proud of putting that effort in because I feel like it informed the realness. Like even if you this is actually something that an acting class of mine talked about in college is that even if you have a script, your character in your head should have some kind of secret that you're not saying in the script and that you're not going to tell the other person because that will drive the motivations behind the way that you say things, the way that you interact with the other characters. Um, that is never verbally stated, but makes you feel real, makes your character feel like an actual living human breathing person. And so yeah, I think that a lot of the effort that I put in, even if it was never seen, like the journal, helped me to feel like a living, breathing person. Ironically, for Mr. Bagley.
Yeah, a not living or breathing person.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so maybe even if you don't get to say it explicitly, it still contributes. Like it's there still is that
Yes.
benefit there. Um, Unrelated but related, was there ever a character or a character archetype, a type of character that you like wanted to play while you were at Evermore, but you didn't get the chance to?
Yeah, actually. So that very last season, the lore season that we were just talking about, I originally like they the casting team actually helped with that casting process, and they were like, "Hey, Kate, because you were the villain and you like deserve a break and whatever, you can kind of choose what um, guild you get to be in." And initially I said the Pirates, because I've got some experience singing, and that's also part of the reason that I like did that song, is because I was like, I still want to sing, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was in choirs growing up and even in college, and like I was in an a cappella group. So I wanted to be able to like perform in that way. Um, and they like by the end of the conversation had put me in the Knights instead. Um, so yeah, I really wanted to be a pirate because I think that would be fun, not just from the singing perspective, but also just from the piratey perspective. And that's something that I didn't get to do, but wish that I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Pirates are fun. I mean, I've
Yeah.
never pretended to be one even as like a world walker or I've never worn a pirate hat, but it seems like an interesting character to try to like embody.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. So that was your last season at Evermore, was in the lore season. Um, it was not actually the last season of Evermore. They did have the Christmas Carol play thing that they did afterwards. Um, so you came this close to being in every single season that I ever documented on my channel. Was there a reason that you didn't want to come back for that winter one?
Yeah. A lot of it was basically that they said that it was going to close down at the very end of lore, and then they went back on that and they were like, "Oh, we can survive for a little bit longer and hopefully like get it back up and running." But because I'd already kind of like emotionally and financially like planned for that to be the end,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I think I need to just follow through with that. So that was a major reason. There was also some like, I'll just say like backstage drama with some people that I was like, okay, it's time for me to be done with this. That has run its course and I need to get out. While I still have like, while it still feels like a good thing that I am doing, if that makes sense. Like it's still the height of more or less of like, I'm still enjoying myself so that I have good memories about it.
Cool. So it felt like maybe around that period of time, if you would have stuck around, there would have been like some friction there. Like there was not like the best environment kind of thing towards the end, or
Yeah, and I will say it wasn't really, as far as I remember, at least anybody that was there during that Aurora season afterwards. So I don't want to like
yeah, yeah.
nobody go try to figure out who it is or whatever. I don't think they were there for Aurora. It was more the people, not also not very many of the people, but some stuff going on during that lore season that
Yeah.
was
The whole
pretty.
situation with sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say it pretty negatively impacted my like self worth, if that makes sense, or like my mental health. And yeah, it was really only like one or two people in there that I won't give any details about or anything, but it was definitely time for me to be done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry that things happened that diminished your self-esteem and everything. Because I think you're great and
Thank
deserve to
you.
be told so. Um
I appreciate that. Thank you, Bob.
Sweet. So, yeah, you moved on from Evermore and um now like at that time and you left and everything. Now you are at Disney, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Sweet. So, um how did working at Evermore impact your decision to audition at Disney? It was like you already mentioned before that you went to Disneyland a lot as a kid, and it was kind of this vague, amorphous, that would be a cool thing to do. But do you feel that you would have actually taken the step to audition to work there if you hadn't worked at Evermore, or would this have probably happened anyway?
No, I don't think I would have. I think that Evermore, the fact that like I got that role initially and then all those roles um, really led directly to me feeling confident enough. I think that's what a lot of Evermore did for me was build that confidence in myself as a performer to be able to audition for Disney. And it was something that in like as a teenager it was something that I wanted to do but not in a way that like felt real, to something that actually was a real like possibility for me. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have auditioned had I not done Evermore.
That's sweet. Um, how is it different working at Disney from working at Evermore? What separates the two?
I definitely say that like establishment slash like budget and whatever is definitely very different, obviously. Um, Disney as a company has been up for like 100 years or whatever, and then Walt Disney World, where I work, has been here for like 50 since 71, I think. So like 54 years or whatever that is, 55. And I think that that's very clear in the way that they already have like some pretty well worn paths that they go down in terms of like the way that they run things on a like managerial side of things. And I think that that is it's nobody's fault that Evermore didn't have that because obviously it was a new company and whatever. But it is definitely very beneficial for a lot of us that they do have that kind of experience managing a theme park. You know, obviously it is kind of the premier theme park in the world. So the fact that they have those, there's a word that I'm looking for that I can't think of, but basically those like paths, those structures in place already is definitely very different and very helpful for me.
That's dope. Yeah, one thing that I think about a lot when it comes to characters, I so my family, we're a bunch of freaks. I have dozens of pictures of us at different theme parks throughout the world in our living room. So literally like where I spend the majority of my time, there's all these pictures hanging. Let me grab one off the wall real quick. I will be right back.
Oh, sweet. Sounds good. That's so fun.
Sorry. I so this was just the closest
You.
one. And it's like I I didn't really have this thought until we were about to talk, but these are all human beings with their own interests and dreams and experiences that I don't know their names and they're just on the wall in my living room and I walk past them every day. Um, is that weird to you?
I think the way I'll say that is that even at Evermore, I felt that, even when I was playing a character that was pretty similar to me, it's still a character. And so when people wanted pictures or when people wanted, um, or like when we had videos going on, or even just like the way that people interacted was very like, you are not necessarily in the case of most guests, some guests, this is not the case for, like you, for example. But in the case of most guests, you're not friends with me, Cade. You're friends with whatever character I'm playing, right? And so, um, I think that that probably translates for performers at Disney as well.
Yeah. So it's a little detached. It isn't like, oh gosh, like I'm in it's like whatever. Like this character is there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You
that
got a
doesn't
picture
have to
with
do with me.
Rapunzel. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Sweet. So being in the Orlando area, there's also a couple of other things that you have the opportunity to do, um, that I want to ask about. One of them is that there was the Evermore musical, the Everfolk show that you were able to attend. What was your perception of that? What was that like?
It was really interesting. Uh, Me and a couple of my really close friends watched it all together. It was interesting because obviously it was telling the story of Evermore, a park that we all worked for and we all knew and loved. But ultimately, we kind of what the consensus that we came to was that it wasn't about Evermore. It was about these people that, they're acting in this play, but they're also usually performers at one of the theme park, one or more of the theme parks here in Orlando. So it wasn't really about Evermore. It was about their experience at Disney or Orlando or at Universal or SeaWorld or whatever. Uh, and that's something that I feel like came through pretty strongly is that they weren't telling our story, they were telling their story by talking about this. Utah theme park that is miles and miles away, you know.
Yeah.
So everybody was like really surprised because we stayed afterwards and talked to the cast and we were like, hey, that play's about us. And everybody was like really surprised that wow, these are actual real life people. This is crazy, you know.
Like it hadn't occurred to them before that they
Yeah,
were talking
yeah.
about real folks, real Everfolk. Yeah, that was,
Yes.
I thought that that was interesting because I saw that on their socials even they posted a picture of you guys backstage
Yeah.
um talking to them. And it's interesting how it relates in the same way, where it is kind of detached, the person from the character. What they were playing were archetypes of theme park actors or performers,
Oh, absolutely.
not the actual this person. So it was, yeah, just a little bit separated in that way. Um, any other thoughts on that before I go to the next thing?
Nah, I don't think
Cool.
so.
Sorry that I keep turning it around on you.
No, this is
It's
great.
just if you had more to say, better safe than sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I do appreciate that. I've
Also,
definitely had
within
more
the
to say.
last year, nice. Um, Epic Universe is a big thing that has happened in the last year in the Orlando area. Have you attended, and what did you think of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Epic. I've gone twice now, I think. I'm pretty sure it's only twice, but it is so cool. It really is like it lives up to the hype that everybody puts it at. It's one of the coolest themed experiences ever. And each of the like lands, the portals or whatever they call them, really is like its own little universe. And they do a really good job of like separating. One of the things that I really appreciate about how Disney does things that Epic Universe specifically does honestly even better is like creating a land or a little universe that is cut off from the rest of the world. And speaking of Evermore, that's something that we did not do super well there is that like, you could see whatever like laboratory or whatever was right across the street, really well lit up right behind the adventurers tent or whatever. Um, but yeah, Epic does a really good job of just like immersing you and drawing you into this world and keeping you there. And that's something that I think is really cool as a really avid like themed entertainment, themed experience goer, enthusiast.
What's your favorite portal? What's your favorite area in Epic Universe?
Probably the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them one, but I do love the monsters area, the Darkmoor, um, partly because it reminds me a lot of Evermore. Actually, it like has very similar vibes, especially to the lore season.
Yeah, I'm considering very heavily making a video about that. How Darkmoor and Evermore share so many similarities, both in the
Sure, yeah.
theming and also, I mean, the name. But cool. What's your favorite? This is a random question, and then I will free you from this very soon, I promise. It's gone on for a while. Thank you so much for being willing to take the time.
Of
Um,
course, this is fun.
for Orlando area theme parks in general, or I guess anywhere in the world, what's your favorite land?
Ooh, I do love the ones that I was just talking about with Epic Universe, but I do really, really love the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at
Okay.
it. There's one in Disneyland and in Walt Disney World.
Mhm.
It's another one that's like super immersive. I really love Star Wars personally too. That's part of it is like just the IP itself is really special to me, but they do a really good job of like fully immersing you and making it feel like you're there on another planet in the Star Wars universe and interacting with all of these characters. And I think that the characters, especially the way that they interact, is very interesting. It's very Evermore, but with IP that you already know that you can see on screen, and then with a lot more budget, which is huge.
Um, that's cool. I also really like that land. I think that it does the kind of encapsulation of you're in this area now and everything looks like that you were talking about, that's one of the better ones where it's like I can't see anything but Star Wars in here. And even the transition actually to go into Galaxy's Edge, it's kind of subtle both in music and like the walls around you, but it's like it goes from like a rocky like more Adventureland type thing to these like sheer very angular cuts through in the same tunnel. It's like one half of the tunnel looks like oh like old country and one half is like you're in the Star Wars universe and you're going to listen to some Star Wars bugs chirping now. So
Yeah,
I yeah, I agree. That's a good one.
yeah, it's very cool.
Um So, yeah, just to let you go and let you sum up and everything, the question I always like to ask at the end is I think it started out as what was your favorite part of Evermore? But I think with some of the interviews, that didn't seem like an appropriate question to ask. So it's more morphed into what is the most prominent or meaningful thing that you are taking away from the Evermore experience? What's been most impactful for you, kind of thing?
I kind of already like mentioned this for a second, but I think for me, it what Evermore has changed in me most is my confidence as a performer, just kind of confidence in general. Um, where before starting in Evermore, I definitely would never have auditioned for Disney. I definitely didn't think of myself as like a true performer. I was like, that was something that I did in high school, and like I'll be in choirs and stuff, but that's kind of the extent of my performance. But now I'm like, I'm a professional performer. I get paid to do this 40 hours a week, you know? Um, and so that's something that I'm really grateful for Evermore as like a company, and also especially the people that I met at Evermore. Adrian, the uh, entertainment director, was huge for that, like even just giving me that chance. But also, she's just like a really supportive person in general. And then my really good friends that I've met from there, Connor and Jess and Yuane and Lizzie, they're very supportive as well, and like they're like siblings to me at this point. And so I think that's kind of a second thing as well, is like the community that I got from it, um, and how that informs kind of my confidence as a person. I'm a very different person now than I was 3 or 4 years ago before Evermore.
Yeah, which is something that happens for all of us, but I've seen the process accelerated for people who have gone through Evermore specifically,
Yes.
with them learning one thing or another. Um, awesome. Well, it's been really great to talk to you again. I've strewn this throughout, but a world of respect for you as a performer and as a person. Is there anything that you're up to right now that you wanted to share with people before we end?
uh, to be honest, not in particular. A lot of it is just the same old,
Okay.
same old. I've got some exciting stuff coming up, but I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to say too much. But yeah,
Okay.
hopefully, at some point in the near future, I'll get to do some other exciting things. Yeah. I know that's super
Awesome.
vague, but I don't want to jinx it.
Oh yeah, I totally understand. And I wish the best for you. I hope that
Thank you.
it remains unjinxed. Um, and yeah, thank you again so much for your time. And I hope you have a great and to the viewer as well. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me. This was really, really fun.
Thanks.